Here it is. I was going to talk about this back it up binge. Think Rose should be finally put in the Hall of Fame. The thing is about, and this is down on my notes. This wasn't a a one off or just going off on a tangent about Rose. I don't think that Pete Rose is ever going to get in the Hall of Fame, just for the simple reason it wasn't a lifetime ban, because if it was a lifetime ban, he'd be in because his life's over. I mean, is that too soon for that joke? But what it was permanent ineligibility, which is a different lawyer speak of the way that is. I don't think he's ever going to get in. I think he, as a player, absolutely, as a what he did on the field before a player, and every talk about this story, and it's been probably talked about later on tonight when I'm around my buddies talking about Pete Rose. And as soon as you want to start a good conversation, you just bring up the name Pete Rose, and it goes from there. And my friend Jim, the fan of the van, he had a great podcast yesterday. He summed it up pretty much perfectly. We have a different opinion about this, how it's all going to pan out. But I don't think that Pete Rose will ever get in the Hall of Fame. I think what he did was with the gambling thing was atrocious. I've been watching that HBO documentary about a few more things that Pete Rose did that wasn't very becoming of a human being, let alone of a professional athlete. Pete Rose, his numbers are obviously the all-time hit king. It'll never be touched. Never ever, the way the game is played now and the way the off days and this on and on it goes. But Pete Rose was for all intent and purpose, and might be a lofty statement. Pete Rose is an awful human being. He's an awful human being, and the stuff that he did to people and the way he was screwing people over and a consummate liar. And Pete Rose never got out of his own way in his later years. When he could have apologized, he could have maybe not live in Vegas where the gambling is. And yes, there is gambling now in across all sports, and Bet MGM this and Bet US this and Bodog this and whatever it might be. There's always another gambling commercial on, but this is the past, and it was always known. I remember when I went to professional umpire school back in '97, the very first thing they told you said, "Don't bet on baseball." It's on every single locker room wall throughout baseball, from the low A right to the major leagues. Don't bet on baseball, and Pete Rose did. He flat out did. And there's different conspiracy theories aside that Pete Rose signed that permanently ineligible thing without much contesting. Without much contesting to Giamatti. And Giamatti died a few months later. And but there wasn't much pushback from Pete Rose because he knew he was in a heap of trouble with some other things. There was statutory rape charges that were against him. There was infidelities against him, and people didn't really know about all this stuff. There wasn't the TMZ world and the Twitter world and everything else, and there was no such thing as camera phones obviously back then. So there was a lot of secrets that could be held, and there was a lot of things that couldn't be talked about, and you wouldn't know unless you were inside that inner circle. And now people chirp like canaries on for these HBO documentaries that the muscle bound steroid guy and cocaine and everything that was going on, that Pete Rose they were trafficking that. But I think Pete Rose took that permanent ineligibility for a reason. I think he took it for the simple fact that there could have been a lot more secrets that came out that would have tarnished his image even more. And because it's one thing to cheat on base, not to cheat, to bet on baseball, but when you start getting accused of statutory rape and you start getting accused of liking young girls, and there's these rumors going about drug trafficking and different kinds of stories that were going around. Pete Rose, this is conspiracy. This is just a 1420 original down here at 10:54 on a Saturday morning before the playoffs start. But I think Pete Rose signed that permanent eligibility thing without much contesting it because he knew that bigger trouble could have came out, and he didn't want that stuff to come out. He wanted to keep that stuff quiet, and that's why he didn't really fight anything. And that's why I think Pete Rose is never going to get in the Hall of Fame. I think that there's a lot more things that are behind closed doors that are never going to get talked about. And that's why I think that Rose will never get in. And because Ty Cobb, he wasn't a very nice person either. But there's a lot of situations where these guys could find themselves where they're not unbecoming as human beings. So that's why, as a baseball player, absolutely he's a Hall of Famer. As a human being, he's not. And I think integrity and character and on it goes. And with the rest, I think that has to be a part of who you are as a baseball player. Cheating on the sport is he wasn't cheating, but he never bet his team to lose. And yeah, that's a thing. But he could also set the lineups that it would work. He could set the lineups where it would, we're going to get blown out this day, so this reliever A is not going to play, and this guy's not going to play, and I'll put this guy in here. I'll put this guy in here. So if he had money down on a game, did he manage a little bit differently? Probably. Probably. How many of those teams weren't very good? You know, because if you lose 2 out of 3, it's hard to get swept. So you put money down in game 3, maybe you have a better chance of winning. Like how many teams lose 3 out of 3? Rose is a piece of scum. Hell of a ball player. Charlie Hustle played the game hard, on and on and on it goes. But Pete Rose is not a Hall of Famer. He cheated the game. He was an indecent human being. That's why I don't think Pete Rose. You hate to speak solemnly against a guy who just passed away, and you hate to say ill of the dead. And I hope no one does that when my old bones finally hit the grave. But he's not a Hall of Famer because you got to have integrity. You got to have some kind of a decent character of a human being, and Pete Rose isn't that kind of guy. And that's why he'll never be a Hall of Famer. And that's my opinion. I'm entitled to it, I guess. But that's my thoughts. I was asked about it by a number of people this week about Pete Rose because he passed away. He had a good pitch the day before, some guys in the Big Red Machine, and they didn't do a whole bunch of winning either when it comes down to it. But that's my thoughts on Rose in the Hall of Fame. Baseball playoffs really get going today. Like I said, it should be a lot of fun to watch. There's 4 games today. Actually get a chance to watch them because they staggered them. There's one that might overlap a little bit, but in general, they stagger the games. So you get to watch all of them today. Should be a lot of fun. Cleveland, Detroit. I'm taking Cleveland to win this series. Their bullpen's too good, but a Detroit team, and this is all these teams, American League Central. They're playing with house money. They're playing nothing to lose. Well, I hate to use that statement, nothing to lose, because you can lose a series. You lose a series, your season's over. But in general, like the Yankees have everything to lose. They have a chance to go to the World Series. Have a pretty decent path. I don't want to say a clear path because these teams are playoff teams. And but they had the 2 best teams in the American League got knocked out this week in the Baltimore Orioles and Detroit Tigers, or not Detroit Tigers, the Houston Astros. They both got knocked out, so there is a bit of a path here for the Yankees to get back to World Series, the first World Series since 2009. And if they don't do it, then when? If they don't do it this year, they ain't going to do it next year because these teams are going to get better and better and better as they go on. But I think that Cleveland's going to beat the Tigers. I think it's going to go up and be a 5-game series. That Detroit team is scrappy. They've been the best team in baseball, and A.J. Hinch has been a manager, won some World Series with the Houston Astros, obviously. And it was kind of poetic justice when Detroit beat Houston the other day in Houston, and you seen it became the whipping boy for the garbage can situation. He ended up being the guy that got himself kicked out of Houston and got fired, and took all the heat for all those players. They threw him under the bus. But you seen he was a little bit of retribution, holding up his hand when he was leaving the field out down there in Houston. But I think Cleveland's going to win that series. Their bullpen is unbelievable. That Class A kid is unstoppable out of the bullpen. Royals, Yankees. I'd say the Yankees probably should win that 1-5, but Bobby Witt Jr. and Sal Perez, if they can stop Perez and Witt, but Witt's a hell of a player, so you never know what you're going to get out of that. But the Yankees should win that series. They are the most talented team in the American League, the most talented team almost in baseball, and they really should get it done this week, and get themselves into the ALCS. Mets, Phillies. Philly's been unstoppable all year, but the Mets are on a bit of a miracle run themselves, and OMG, LFMG, LFG, I'm sorry. They have a shot. You know what? I'm taking the Mets to win that 1-5, and then Padres, Dodgers. I'm going to take the Padres. I'd rather see the Dodgers win. I'd like to see a Dodgers Yankees World Series for the first time since '77 or '78, whatever it was. But I think that, or was it the '80s? They all kind of roll into one at this time in my life. But I think that it's going to be the Padres are going to win that series. They're a team that's hungry. They're a team that's been there. And this might be the swan song, like I said earlier on, for Dave Roberts and the crew over there with the Los Angeles Dodgers. So there's my predictions for the divisional series. It's been a fun show this morning. We got to get a little word from our friends at SeatGeek, and then we'll get down to today's On This Day, and we'll get you guys out of here.